My son came home on a Friday afternoon. Richard had driven him back from his mother's place, about 2 hours outside of Nashville, and when that car pulled into our driveway, I was already at the front door. I had been counting down the days. 14 days felt like 40 when your child wasn't home. I watched Richard help Tyler with his bag. Normal, routine, nothing unusual on the surface. But then Tyler walked through that front door, and something shifted in the air. No running. No, Mom. You won't believe what happened. No throwing himself into my arms the way he always did after even a single night away. He just walked in, quietly, slowly, like he was carrying something heavy that no one could see. I smiled at him. Big, warm. The way mothers do when they're trying to make everything feel safe before they even know what's wrong. Hey, baby, I said softly. I missed you so much. How was Grandma's? He stopped in the middle of the entryway. He looked up at me, and I felt it. That thing in your chest that no one ever teaches you about, but every mother knows. That silent alarm that goes off when your child's eyes don't look right. Tyler's eyes didn't look right. They were tired, distant, like he had been somewhere far away for much longer than 2 weeks. He didn't answer my question. He just unzipped his backpack, slowly, and pulled out his iPad. He held it out to me with both hands. Mom, he said quietly, I need you to watch something. I took it from him. I pressed play. And I want you to stay with me because what was on that screen didn't just shock me. It rewrote everything I thought I knew about my own life. My name is Caroline Hayes. I am 37 years old, and I live in Nashville, Tennessee, in a house that I've spent the last 8 years turning into a home. I am a speech-language pathologist. I work 3 days a week at a pediatric clinic about 12 minutes from our neighborhood, and the other 2 days I work remotely. I chose the schedule deliberately because when Tyler was born, I made a quiet decision that I was going to be present. Not perfect, just present. Tyler James Hayes came into the world on a Tuesday morning in March, 9 years ago. He weighed 7 pounds 4 ounces and spent his first 10 minutes on Earth staring up at me with the most serious expression I had ever seen on a newborn face. The nurse laughed and said, "That one's going to be a thinker." She was right. Tyler thinks about everything. He reads above his grade level. He asks questions that make his teachers pause. He cries at sad movies and then gets embarrassed about it and then talks about the movie for 3 days afterward anyway. He is the kind of child who remembers the names of every dog he has ever met but regularly forgets where he put his shoes. He is my whole world. Simply and completely. His father is Richard Hayes. Richard and I met 12 years ago at a work conference in Atlanta. He was in corporate logistics, the kind of job that sounds boring until he explained it and then somehow still sounded boring, but you found yourself nodding along anyway because he had a way of making everything feel important when he talked about it. He was tall, steady, and calm in a way I found deeply attractive at 25. I had grown up in a loud, chaotic household, and Richard's quietness felt like shelter. We got married after 2 years of dating, moved to Nashville because his company had a regional office there, bought a house, had Tyler. Richard's job required him to travel frequently. His company's main operations were based out of Charlotte, North Carolina, which meant that during the week, most weeks, it was just Tyler and me in Nashville. Richard would fly back on Friday evenings and leave again Sunday nights. That was our rhythm. That was just life. For most of those years, things were fine. Not perfect. Fine. I won't sit here and tell you our marriage was secretly miserable from the beginning. That would be a lie, and this story has enough painful truth in it without me adding to it. What I will tell you is this. Richard had a habit of making me feel like my instincts were wrong. Not cruelly. Not loudly. Just consistently. You're overthinking it, Caroline. That's not what happened. You misremembered. You're too sensitive about this stuff. Over years, those small corrections accumulated. I stopped trusting my own read on situations. I started second-guessing myself before I even finished a thought. I became very good at talking myself out of my own concerns. I thought that was just how marriage worked. That compromise meant softening yourself to fit around another person. I understand now that there is a difference between compromising and disappearing. But I didn't understand it then. Now, Richard's mother Sybil Hayes lived about 2 hours east of Nashville, in a large house on a quiet road surrounded by trees. She was 63 years old, well-dressed, well-spoken, and had the particular kind of Southern graciousness that made you feel both welcomed and evaluated simultaneously. Sybil never said anything overtly cruel to me. That was not her style. Her style was subtler. A comment about Tyler being so emotional for a boy his age. A smile when she said it, so you couldn't quite call it an insult. A remark about how some mothers have a hard time letting their children grow up, directed at no one in particular, at a family dinner, while looking directly at me. I mentioned these moments to Richard exactly twice over the years. Both times, he told me I was misreading the situation. Both times, I let it go. Because that's what I did then. I let things go. I kept the peace. I told myself it didn't matter. It mattered. This past June, Richard suggested that Tyler spend 2 weeks with Sybil during summer break. Richard had taken that particular week off from work. He said he wanted to personally drive Tyler out to Sybil's, spend a few days there himself, and then head to Charlotte for the remainder of the trip. He framed it as quality time, father and son on the road, grandmother's house for the summer. It sounded reasonable. It sounded like exactly the kind of involved parenting I had always quietly wished Richard would show more of. I said yes. I helped Tyler pack his bags. I made sure his iPad was fully charged, his shows downloaded, his games updated, his earbuds tucked into the front pocket. Tyler went everywhere with that iPad. It was his entertainment, his comfort, his little window into whatever world he was currently obsessed with. I kissed his forehead at the door and said, "Call me whenever you want, okay?
Day or night?"
I don't care what time." "I know, Mom," he said, in that patient way 9-year-olds have when they think you're worrying unnecessarily. Richard loaded the car. They backed out of the driveway. I stood on the porch and watched until I couldn't see them anymore. Then I went inside, and the house was very quiet. The first few days, Tyler called every evening. He sounded like himself, telling me about Biscuit, Sybil's dog, about a pond near her house where he'd seen frogs, about a board game they'd played after dinner. Normal.
Fine. Good even.
Then, around day 5, something shifted. The calls got shorter. Tyler's voice got flatter. When I asked, "What did you do today?" he started giving me single-sentence answers. Not much. Just stayed inside. It was fine. I told myself he was just tired. Kids hit a wall midway through long trips.
It happened.
But one night, night 8 of 14, my phone rang at 11:45. I grabbed it immediately when I saw Tyler's name on the screen. "Hey baby, what's wrong? Why are you still up?" His voice was very small. I couldn't sleep. Did something happen? A long pause. Not really. That pause. That not really. Something in the way he said it made my chest tighten immediately. "Tyler," I said carefully. "You know you can tell me anything, right? No matter what it is." "I know. Are you okay over there?" Another pause. Then yeah, I'm okay. He didn't sound okay. We talked for a few more minutes about nothing in particular, his library book, a show he'd been watching, and then he said he was going to try to sleep. We said goodnight. I hung up. I lay in the dark for a long time. And then I did something I had never done before in 9 years of parenting. I texted Tyler, not a call, a text, because I didn't want him to feel any pressure, and I wrote,
"Hey,
if anything ever feels off while you're there, anything at all, you can use your iPad to record it. Just for yourself. So you remember it clearly when you tell me. You don't have to.
But you can.
I love you." He read it. He sent back a single heart emoji. I didn't know if he would do anything with that. I didn't know what I was even expecting. I just knew that something in my gut, that wordless, persistent feeling that something was not right, was telling me to say it. 6 days later, Richard pulled into our driveway with Tyler in the passenger seat. And Tyler walked through our front door and didn't look like Tyler. He was quiet in that particular way that isn't peaceful. His shoulders were pulled up toward his ears. His eyes went to the floor before they found me. He moved through the entryway carefully, like someone navigating a space they weren't entirely sure was safe. I dropped to one knee right there in the entryway. "Hey, buddy," I said, keeping my voice soft and steady. I missed you so much. You okay? He looked up at me, and I will never, for the rest of my life, forget the expression on his face. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't homesickness. It was the particular look of a child who has been carrying something too heavy for too long and has finally found the one person he trusts enough to put it down. He didn't answer my question. He reached into his backpack and pulled out his iPad. He held it out to me with both hands.
Mom.
I need you to watch something. The video was 53 seconds long. Tyler had propped his iPad behind a stack of books on the shelf in Sybil's living room, camera facing out, partially hidden. The angle was imperfect. The image was slightly dark, but the audio was completely clear. Sybil was sitting on her sofa. Richard was in the armchair across from her. Tyler was not in the frame. He had quietly slipped out of the room moments before, leaving his iPad running, and positioned himself just outside the doorway, where he could still hear everything. Sybil spoke first. He cried again at dinner. Over nothing, Richard. That boy cries over nothing. Richard exhaled. Not the exhale of a concerned father. The exhale of a man who had heard this before and agreed with it entirely.
I know, he said.
That is not normal for a boy his age. Caroline lets him treat every emotion like it deserves a full conversation, Richard said. She has never once pushed him past his comfort zone. Not once. Well, Sybil said, and her voice carried that particular tone.
Calm. Certain.
Slightly satisfied. She's not here right now. A short silence stretched between them. He needs to understand, Richard continued, that the world is not going to stop for his feelings. I'm not going to keep watching him fall apart over small things and pretend that's acceptable. Then stop letting her make every decision, Sybil said simply. That's the whole problem. Another silence. Then Richard said the sentence that I have thought about every single day since. After everything settles, it won't be her call anymore. The video ended. I stood in my entryway holding that iPad. Richard was somewhere behind me. He had come inside and gone straight upstairs, completely normal, completely unbothered. I could hear him moving around up there, opening drawers, just existing, like nothing had happened. I looked at Tyler. He was watching my face carefully the way children do when they're trying to measure how serious something is by reading their parents' expression. I kept my face steady. How long has it been like this at Grandma's house? I asked quietly. He thought about it for a moment. Last summer too, but not as much. Did Dad ever say anything directly to you about any of this? Tyler looked at the floor. He said I needed to stop being so sensitive, that it made things harder for everyone. I kept my voice even. Okay, come here. I pulled him into my arms and held him. His shoulders, which had been pulled up near his ears since he walked through the door, slowly, gradually came down. You did the right thing, I told him quietly. Showing me this. You did exactly the right thing. Are you mad? He mumbled into my shoulder. Not at you, I said. Not even close. I put Tyler to bed that night with his favorite movie playing softly in the background. I stayed until his breathing evened out, and he was fully asleep. Then I went downstairs. I sat at the kitchen table, and I allowed myself exactly 10 minutes to feel everything. The shock, the grief, the specific, complicated pain of realizing that the person who was supposed to be your partner had been operating in a completely different direction, quietly, carefully, for a long time, and you had been the last to know. 10 minutes. Then I opened my laptop and started writing everything down. After everything settles, it won't be her call anymore. Richard wasn't talking about parenting approaches. He wasn't talking about discipline or how Tyler handled his emotions. He was talking about something specific. Something already decided. Something with a timeline already attached to it. After everything settles. I needed to understand exactly what that meant. The next morning, I called my sister Pamela. Pamela Ross was 41 years old and had been practicing family law in Nashville for over 12 years. She was sharp, methodical, and had a particular gift for cutting through emotion to find the structural truth underneath any situation. She was also the person who had, at my wedding rehearsal dinner 11 years ago, quietly pulled me aside and said, "He seems like a good man, Caroline. Just make sure he stays that way." I had smiled and told her she worried too much. I wasn't smiling now. I told her everything. I sent her the video while we were still on the phone. I heard her watch it. I heard the silence after it ended. "Caroline," she said carefully. "That last line. It won't be her call anymore." Has Richard ever said anything like that to you before? Mentioned any plans, any changes coming? "No," I said. "Nothing." "Okay," she said. "I need you to do something right now. Pull up every joint financial account you have access to, checking, savings, anything, and tell me if anything looks unfamiliar. Any transfers you don't recognize. Any accounts you've never seen before." I opened our banking app while we stayed on the phone. And that was when the floor dropped out from underneath me for the second time in 24 hours. There were transfers. Small ones. Consistent ones. Going back almost 3 years. Always on the same day of the month. Always moving to the same external account, an account I did not recognize. An account that appeared in none of our shared financial records. "Pamela," I said slowly.
"I see them," she said.
She had been following along through a shared screen. "Don't touch anything. Don't move a single dollar. And do not say one word to Richard about any of this." "What is it?" "I don't know the full picture yet," she said. "But I'm going to find out. And, Caroline, I need you to act completely normal at home."
"Can you do that?"
I looked around my kitchen. The coffee mug Richard had left on the counter that morning. Tyler's cereal bowl still in the drying rack. "Yes," I said. "I can do that." Pamela connected me with a forensic financial investigator named Dr. Sandra Owens. Dr. Owens was a quiet, precise woman who spoke in the measured tones of someone who had seen a great deal over a long career and was genuinely no longer surprised by any of it. She wore reading glasses on a chain and took notes in a small leather notebook and asked questions so specific that answering them felt like being gently dismantled and put back together. She spent 3 weeks pulling records. What she found, methodically and thoroughly, was this. Richard had been moving money out of our joint finances for nearly 4 years. The amounts were kept deliberately small, carefully calculated to stay below the thresholds that trigger automatic flags in standard banking systems. Individually, each transfer looked like nothing. Cumulatively, over 4 years, they had built into something very significant. There was a separate account, established in Richard's name alone, shortly after Tyler's 2nd birthday, connected to a financial holding structure that Sybil had helped arrange through her own contacts. Sybil had not been a passive observer in whatever Richard had been planning. She had been part of constructing it. And then there was the house. Our house, the one I had spent 8 years filling with Tyler's artwork from school and the smell of Sunday morning pancakes and the comfortable, lived-in disorder of a real family, had been refinanced 18 months ago. Richard had handled all the paperwork. He had placed documents in front of me and told me it was routine. I had trusted him and signed. It was not routine. The refinancing had been structured in a way that, according to Pamela, was legally improper. It had been done without my full informed understanding of what I was actually agreeing to. Dr. Owen sat across from me in Pamela's conference room one afternoon and laid out the complete picture in plain, factual terms. When she finished, the room was quiet. "He was building an exit," Pamela said. "A financial exit. Constructed over years. You were never meant to see any of it coming." I sat with that for a moment. "But I did," I said.
Pamela looked at me.
"Because your 9-year-old son propped his iPad behind a stack of books." I filed for divorce on a Thursday morning in September. Richard was served at his office in Charlotte. He called me 6 times that afternoon. I did not answer a single call. When he returned to Nashville that evening, Tyler and I were already at Pamela's house. I had packed what we needed the night before, quietly, methodically, while Richard slept, and had loaded the car before he woke up. His texts that night moved through confusion, then frustration, then something I had genuinely never seen from him before.
Fear.
I read every message carefully. I did not respond to one. The legal process took 7 months. I will not tell you those 7 months were easy or clean. There were difficult days, long, heavy days when the weight of everything pressed down in ways that were hard to describe. Days when Tyler asked questions I didn't have simple answers to. Days when I sat at Pamela's kitchen table past midnight and felt the full enormity of what had quietly been happening inside my own life without my knowledge. But I had the video. I had Dr. Owen's complete financial documentation, 4 years of carefully traced transactions, laid out with precision in black and white. I had Pamela, who filed every motion with the focused composure of someone who does not lose often and had no intention of starting now. And I had Tyler. Tyler met with a child psychologist named Dr. Angela Freeman, a warm, unhurried woman whose office had plants on every windowsill and a small fish tank in the corner that Tyler became immediately and deeply interested in during their first session. Dr. Freeman was specifically trained in working with children involved in family legal proceedings. She met with Tyler across several sessions, always at his pace, always on his terms, never pushing, never leading. What Tyler shared with her about the comments, about being told his emotions were an inconvenience, about being made to feel that his own mother's closeness to him was the source of his problems, Dr. Freeman documented with care. Her professional assessment was clear. It was precise. And it did significant damage to Richard's position in the proceedings. Richard's legal team tried several approaches. They called me emotionally reactive. They suggested Tyler had been influenced in what he reported. They argued the financial transfers were mischaracterized and taken out of context. Pamela responded to each argument with documentation. No drama. No elevated emotion. Just evidence, clearly organized and methodically presented. When Richard's attorney suggested in one session that the recording lacked credibility, Pamela set Dr. Owen's full financial report on the table for years of records, tabbed and indexed, and said quietly, "We can address the recording first, or we can start here. We have time either way." The room went very quiet. The judge issued her ruling on a Tuesday morning in April. Primary custody, Tyler with me. Richard granted supervised visitation, contingent on completion of a court-mandated parenting evaluation program before any unsupervised access would be considered. The house, the improper refinancing, was ruled legally invalid. Richard's claims on the primary residence were substantially impacted as a result. The hidden financial accounts, ruled part of the marital asset pool once surfaced, divided accordingly under Tennessee law. Sybil's financial involvement, fully documented in the court record, referred for separate legal review. I did not celebrate when Pamela called me with the ruling. I sat in my car in the parking lot outside her building and stayed very still for a long time. Not because I wasn't relieved. I was deeply, quietly, completely. But because relief and grief can exist in the same moment without canceling each other out. I had loved Richard once. Genuinely and completely. I had built a life around that love and had believed in it for 12 years. Grieving that was necessary. I allowed myself to do it, briefly, privately, fully. And then I drove to pick up my son from school. We moved into a new house in late May. 3 bedrooms. A yard with a large oak tree that Tyler immediately and seriously informed me needed a tire swing. A kitchen with wide windows and good morning light. It was mine. Fully, legally, unambiguously mine. On the first weekend, Tyler helped me unpack boxes. We ordered pizza and ate it sitting on the living room floor because we hadn't located the table yet. Captain, our golden retriever, adopted 2 months earlier and already the single most enthusiastic presence in any room he entered, conducted a thorough investigation of every corner of the new house and then settled himself directly in the center of the kitchen floor, where he was the maximum possible inconvenience to anyone trying to move around. Tyler found this so funny that he got hiccups. That sound, his laugh, unguarded and completely himself, after weeks of watching him carry something no child should have to carry. That was everything. Tyler continued seeing Dr. Freeman through the summer and into the fall. He talked about things he had held quietly for longer than I had realized. He worked through them slowly, at his own pace, in his own words. He learned, gradually, in the way real things are learned, that feeling things deeply was not a character flaw, that his sensitivity was not weakness, that the people who had framed it that way had been wrong. One afternoon, he came out of a session and told me, with the particular matter-of-fact confidence of a 9-year-old who has just received information he finds personally vindicating. Dr. Freeman says I have really strong emotional awareness for my age.
She's right, I said.
He was quiet for a moment, looking out the car window. Dad always talked about it like it was a problem, he said.
I know, I said.
But it's not, he said. Not a question. A conclusion he had arrived at himself. No, I said. It's not. He nodded once, the satisfied nod of someone filing something away correctly, and then asked if we could stop for ice cream. We stopped for ice cream. I think a lot about night 8. 11:45. Tyler's voice small and careful on the phone. That long pause before, not really. I almost talked myself out of it. I almost did what I had done for 12 years. Told myself I was reading too much into it, that I was being oversensitive, that I should let it go. I almost didn't send that text. And I think about that moment more than almost any other moment in this entire experience, because it wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a turning point that felt like a turning point. It was just a quiet choice, made alone in the dark, to trust what I already knew. That is the thing I want to leave you with today. There is a difference between keeping the peace and losing yourself in the process of keeping it. For 12 years, I mistook my silence for stability. I thought making myself smaller was holding things together. I didn't see that what I was actually doing was making space for something damaging to grow, slowly, quietly, in the places I had stopped looking. Your instincts are not too much. That quiet, persistent, wordless thing you know, the one you keep explaining away, that is not overthinking. That is not you being difficult or sensitive or unreasonable. That is information. And it deserves to be taken seriously. Tyler understood that at 9 years old. Alone, in an unfamiliar situation, carrying something he shouldn't have had to carry, he found a way to hold onto the truth until he could bring it home to the one person he trusted completely. I will never stop being grateful for that. We have good mornings now. The kind where Captain knocks something off the counter before 7 a.m. and Tyler laughs from the other room before he even knows what happened. The kind where the kitchen smells like coffee and the light comes through those wide windows and there is genuinely, simply, nowhere else I would rather be. It is quieter than our old life, but it is the right kind of quiet. The kind that actually means peace. Before I go, I want to ask you something. Have you ever known something quietly, clearly, with a certainty you couldn't fully explain, and talked yourself out of it anyway? And if you're honest with yourself, what would have been different if you had listened?
Sit with that.
And if this story meant something to you today, share it with someone who might need to hear it.